Hello everyone, welcome back to the most hardcore EA Sports FC tactical channel. In the previous videos, we have covered all the content about player attributes, including basic stats calculation, analysis of strengthening attributes, analysis of the skill move system, and analysis of the trait system. After mastering these contents, you can have a more comprehensive understanding of how to choose player cards. In this video, we will talk about the standard cards in the game. As the most basic 3-star players in the game, they are the foundation of the game content and will accompany players for a long time during the early stages of the game. Let's take a look at some of the traits of the standard cards, which ones are more useful, and which are the strongest, etc. First, let's briefly review some of the traits of the standard cards. We have covered these contents in previous videos, so here is a quick summary. 1. Strengthening attribute points. Standard cards can only gain 2 strengthening attribute points for each evolution, up to 4 times, totaling 8 points. In comparison, seasonal cards gain 3 points each time, up to 12, and premium or icon cards gain 4 points each time, up to 16. Therefore, the attribute enhancement brought by evolution to standard cards is relatively small. 2. Trait slots and skill move slots. Firstly, standard cards do not have main trait slots or main skill move slots, so they cannot possess specific levels of traits and skills. However, the advantage is that all S traits and S skill moves of standard cards can be freely removed, which other card levels do not have. Initially, standard cards only had 3 sub-trait slots and 3 sub-skill move slots, which greatly limited their potential. However, after the 1.3.0 version update, all standard cards were enhanced to have 4 trait slots and 4 skill move slots. This greatly increased the usability of standard cards, narrowing the gap with seasonal and premium or icon cards. Speaking of the 1.3.0 update, I'll also discuss some other changes I've noticed. The main change is that all standard card data has been reset, changing from the 2023 version to the 2024 version. Almost all attributes of the card have been redesigned, including: if a player transfers, the corresponding team and league will change. Then the game stats have been adjusted. The overall distribution of stats hasn't changed much, but the specific stats has. For example, both Messi and Ronaldo have had their stats reduced. As for how other players have been adjusted, I won't list them all because the 2023 version of the players no longer exists in the game. We can only see stats in the 2024 version. Traits and skill moves have also been adjusted. For example, the 2023 version of Ronaldo had S traits and S aerial skill move, but in the 2024 version, both were downgraded to a level rarity, causing the new version of Ronaldo's importance to decline significantly. Another point to note is that if you now get a new Ronaldo card, you will get the A rarity of the traits and skill moves. If you had already obtained the 2023 version of Ronaldo, his S traits and skill moves will not change, of course, if you are lucky enough. Regarding the reset of standard cards, here are my thoughts. First, it's foreseeable that the game will adjust standard cards every year in the future, similar to how the FC game releases a new version every year. This is to adjust based on real-world player transfers, changes in strength, etc., making the game more immersive and up-to-date. From the current adjustments, there are not only enhancements but also many reductions. This is definitely a good sign, at least indicating that the design team is controlling the stats inflation problem. It's not just about constant strengthening. This means that all your players will retain their value more. Although the main focus of the game is on premium or icon cards, I haven't noticed any adjustments to non-standard card type players in this update. I predict that there is a very high probability that these cards will not be adjusted in the future because they reflect the era at that time. Therefore, standard cards have more value in terms of inheritance. Perhaps after adjusting each year, the strength of standard cards will be stronger than the current premium or icon cards, making these standard cards an important asset for transitioning to a new generation. Lastly, we've also added 5 new standard cards this time. VIRGIL, VINI JR, Sun, MOUKOKO, ENZO, You can exchange these in the shop using the rookie medals, which can be obtained by completing world matches, finishing tasks, etc. The design of these 5 rookie standard cards is different from other standard cards, especially this Son Heung-min, which has a bit of a chibi, big-headed, cartoon feel. I'm not sure what's going on. If you join the game in version 1.3.0, the initial Son Heung-min you receive will be this chibi cartoon version, and the previous one is now history. Interestingly, there are already 3 Son Heung-min cards in the game, 1 for each color, and the latest FTCC card pool's SS player is also Son Heung-min. It seems the game planners really like this player. Of course, I also like him because I got this card too, haha. Alright, after a brief review of the basic settings of the standard cards and the changes in version 1.3.0, let's take a look at all the content of the standard cards you need to know. First, let's talk about how to obtain standard cards. The most direct way is to draw cards. The game has a permanent standard card pool with all the standard cards in it. However, considering the price of drawing cards and the 3-star probability, I strongly do not recommend drawing from the standard card pool. Initially, you only needed 600 TP for a 10-card draw from the standard card pool, but I don't know why it's now changed to 1200 TP. This is the same cost as the premium pool, but the 3-star probability and card quality are completely overshadowed. I don't quite understand why it was changed like this. Even with the 600 TP standard card pool, I wouldn't recommend drawing, let alone the 1200 TP one. But I guess everyone knows about the Legend pool. Although a 10-card draw from the Legend pool costs 3000 TP, making it the most expensive card pool in the game, if you look closely at the probabilities, this pool is very good. The 3-star probability is 15%, much higher than other pools. To complain a bit, the initial probability of the Legend pool was 20%, even higher than now. Then there are the players in the pool. The one with the highest probability is, of course, the current passing player, followed by all previous Legend players in the pool. Also, all standard cards are in the Legend pool, and the probability is very high. A common occurrence when drawing from the Legend pool is getting 3 to 4 3-star cards in a 10-card draw, which is quite satisfying. Of course, there are also times when you get 0 3-star cards. But there's a high chance of getting standard cards. If you're aiming for Legend cards, you might be a bit disappointed, but if you get a good standard card, it's still very worthwhile. The second way is to exchange rookie medals for some standard cards. However, the quality of these standard cards is not high. They're just for you to quickly form a full 3-type team in the early stages. Don't expect these standard cards to do much. Additionally, some seasonal events and rewards will give you some standard cards, but these are not the strongest ones. By the way, there are 85 standard cards available in the Standard and Legend pool, and another 5 can be obtained in the shop using rookie medals, making a total of 90. If you only consider the 2024 version, that's all there is. Next, let's talk about the S traits and skill moves of standard cards. As mentioned many times before, standard cards are the only type of card in the game that can dismantle S traits and S skill moves. Of course, you can obtain some S traits and S skill moves in the shop and through events, but what you generally get are not as good as those on these cards. Let's take a look at all the S traits and skill moves available on the current standard cards. First, let's look at the S skill moves. Among the 90 standard cards, there are a total of 27 S skill moves. If you remember the content of the video I talked about momentum before, you'll know that 223 is the highest momentum for non-limited S skill moves. The difference in momentum between the highest and lowest S skill moves is only 8 points. What's more important is having it, not necessarily having the strongest one. The only exception is when premium or icon players want to upgrade their secondary main skill move. They usually have a maxed out 205 momentum A rarity skill. In this case, if the secondary skill slot learns a 215 momentum S skill, it's not very worthwhile. It's better to aim for a 223 momentum S skill. Next, let's discuss which of these skill moves are more useful and which are less useful. First, we need to know that in the exhibition metal exchange shop, you can exchange for 4 types of S skill moves: tackling, intercepting, passing, and receiving. Although these skill moves are all maxed out at 215 S level, their existence greatly reduces the demand for corresponding standard card skill moves. Even if there is a demand, it must be for the 223 S skill moves. Among them, tackling, intercepting, and passing are very practical skill moves. The problem with receiving will be discussed later. Among the remaining S skill moves, several are relatively less useful: shooting, high-low ball, receiving, and striking. Because the top shooters and goalkeepers in the game are definitely premium or icon players with SS skill moves, or at least they come with a 235 momentum S skill move. Therefore, these standard cards' S skills are not very useful. Of course, they're not completely useless. For example, 1. Players with high shooting stats but no S shooting skill move can be used as secondary shooters. 2. Early in the game, a rarity skill shooters and goalkeepers need S skill move to upgrade a momentum level. However, there's a paradox: if you get a standard card with an S skill move, they're generally stronger than those with only an A-level skill move. So there's no need to dismantle the S skill for these A rarity standard cards unless you get duplicates and then use them in stages that require specific player bonuses. In this case, the S receiving skill moves from the shop is very useful in the early stages of the game when you only have A rarity skill moves. However, once you get a premium or icon goalkeeper, the S receiving skill moves from the shop becomes completely useless, or it can only be used in specific matches. 3. Regarding the high-low ball issue, many shooters come with either a high or low ball skill move. You can indeed teach them the other one to complete their aerial shooting skill moves, ensuring that they can use an S skill move regardless of the type of pass they receive. However, the one they come with is at least 235 momentum, and they often have traits or specialties that enhance this aerial skill move. In this case, even if you teach them the other aerial shooting skill move with a maximum momentum of 223, it's much weaker than the one they come with. In practical situations, you should try to use the strongest shot to maximize scoring. Then, mastering both high and low ball skill moves takes up a lot of skill move slots. If you also learn a ground shot, you won't be able to have all the rock paper scissors skill moves, and you'll need to sacrifice some skill moves. Next, let's talk about blocking. Blocking is largely influenced by the shooter's situation. Most people's shooters are premium or icon SS shooters. At this time, players who don't come with S or SS blocking skill moves, especially those with low momentum, find it very hard to block star shooters. Therefore, I feel its practicality isn't as high as tackling. Of course, having multiple defensive skill moves for defenders is beneficial. Using an S skill move at a crucial moment can sometimes create miracles. So, looking at it this way, the most useful standard card S skill moves are the remaining 2. Dribbling. 1-2. Both of these enhance ball carrying and advancing skill moves. They're crucial for offense. If you get a standard card with these S skill moves, you can pop the champagne and celebrate. Having discussed S skill moves, let's look at S traits. An interesting point is that among the 90 standard cards, there are 28 S rarity traits, one more than S skill moves, which is saying only one player has an S trait without an S skill move. I've analyzed all the traits thoroughly in previous videos, summarizing which are good and which aren't. Of course, you can have your own opinions, but here I'll base it on my previous evaluations of the traits. Area Master Traits. First, we have the strongest Area Master Traits. Standard card S traits include 2 offensive 1/3 traits, Messi and Griezmann, which are top-tier traits for offensive players. 1 midfield 1/3 trait, Casemiro, a top-tier trait for midfield players. Penalty Area Master, Lewandowski. It's not as good as the offensive 1/3. It's best used by aerial dominators. For offensive players, it requires entering the penalty area, which is limiting. Own Penalty Area Master, Bottoni. I'm not very familiar with this player. For defenders, it enhances blocking ability within the penalty area. It's definitely not as good as the defensive 1/3. Skill move level up. A stable single ability boost, which is very strong for specific players. 1 Shooting Master, Holland, a top-tier trait for shooters. 2 Striking Masters, Neuer and Donnarumma, top-tier traits for striking goalkeepers. 1 Dribbling Master, Vinicius Jr., and 1 Passing Master, De Bruyne. Both are tools to enhance offensive players' bullying abilities. There are also 2 Tackling Masters and 1 Blocking Master. Defense must be able to bully to be meaningful. If taught to certain players, it can be useful. Otherwise, for rock paper scissors plays, the rock paper scissors master from the shop might be better. Other useful traits. The other categories are quite scattered, so I'll group them together. 1 Anti-shooting, Courtois. A pretty good trait for goalkeepers. Although it doesn't enhance resistance against high-low balls, ground shots are the main shooting method. 2 Anti-FW, Becker and Araujo. Both goalkeepers and defenders become quite powerful after learning this. 1 Anti-GK, Mbappe. For shooters, it's not as good as the offensive 1/3, but it's still a stable boost and quite good. 1 Low Ball Master, Lautaro. A trait that can enhance the limitability of low ball shooters. Because of the game setting that self-passes in the penalty area must be low balls, the Low Ball Master is super useful. Combined with very good at, it's almost unstoppable. Originally, the 2023 version of Ronaldo was an S-High Ball Master, which was also good, but now the game can't get it anymore, RIP. 1 Auto Intercept, Marquinhos. Stacking 2 to 3 in trait slot with the rock paper scissors master together is quite good. If the level is low or there are fewer stacks, it might not be as useful. This is currently the only source of auto intercept in the game, making it very precious. The other traits, in my opinion, aren't as useful, such as anti-single color, consumption reduction, score boost, stamina boost, etc. If you like them, you can use them. However, I think some of these traits might be less useful than some rarity practical traits. I'll just list these traits and won't evaluate each one. After discussing skill moves and traits, which are their values as materials, how are standard cards as usable players? First, the card's basic stats don't directly reflect the player's ability. You need to calculate the in-match stats, which are more straightforward. I've discussed the calculation formula in previous videos, so I'll just summarize here without going into detail. The calculated results range from 8K to 11K. Compared to EA Sports FC 24's percentage system, it's not very straightforward. So, we take the maximum single stats, which is Holland's shooting at 12,329, as 100, and calculate all other stats proportionally to get the percentage ability stats. The resulting data is as follows. The shooting stats is like this. Let's look at the goalkeeper's situation, combining striking and catching. Standard card goalkeeper's overall stats is much lower than shooting. Out of the 90 cards, 32 standard cards have basic stats of shooting over 80. Although considering shooters will have distance angle decay and other issues, generally shooting near the penalty area won't decay too much. It's clear that this is an environment that encourages offense. Although goalkeepers have a slight advantage in attribute enhancement over shooters, as goalkeepers have stamina enhancement, which I've discussed in content about attribute enhancement, it won't significantly affect this environment. Next, let's look at blocking. Surprisingly, the stats are even higher than the goalkeepers. You should know that when goalkeepers and shooters confront each other, they directly compare stats values. However, when defenders block shots, they can get a 30% attribute boost. This means that even if the blocking value is a bit lower, they can still block shots. It seems that the shooter's biggest enemy is not the goalkeeper, but the rock paper scissors against the defenders. The dribbling rankings in the offensive rock paper scissors are as follows, with Vinicius Jr. being the strongest. The stats differences among the top ranked players aren't significant. The passing rankings are shown in a table, with Messi being the strongest and leading by a significant margin over the second place. Then there's tackling and intercepting. Tackling is generally stronger. The overall stats for both is lower than the offensive dribbling and passing. However, considering the boost from correctly guessing in rock, paper, scissors, it's not a problem. Lastly, we'll list some comprehensive stats rankings. First, let's look at the offensive rankings, which combine shooting, dribbling, and passing. The stats on the far left is the average. The differences among the top players aren't significant. Messi has the highest combined offensive stats. However, if you can't dominate in offense, the differences among the top players aren't that significant. Those with stronger shooting might be more useful. Then, let's look at the defensive comprehensive stats rankings. Ruben Dias is the strongest in defense, slightly leading the following players. As long as their defensive stats isn't too low, facing standard card forwards in rock, paper, scissors isn't a problem. Lastly, let's look at the comprehensive rock, paper, scissors stats for both offense and defense, considering dribbling, passing, tackling, and intercepting. These players can hold their own in midfield rock, paper, scissors. Okay, that's all the main content for this video. I hope you have a deeper understanding of all the standard cards in the game, knowing the value of the skills or traits of these cards, and the value of their stats when you get these standard cards. Lastly, I want to emphasize that standard cards are just the basic content of this game. The core content revolves around premium and icon cards. They comprehensively surpass standard cards in ability. The data display and evaluation system for premium and icon players will also be more complex. I'll discuss that in future videos. Thank you for watching. See you next time.